Okay, so this is the first in, the very first video in a series in which I will attempt, as what I like to think of as a very average gamer, I will attempt to complete every single game in publication order of the Soulsborne series without dying within that game at any point. Unless, of course, forced to. So in Demon's Souls, you're forced to die during the tutorial. In Dark Souls, at one point, you're forced to die, and so on. And the general conceit of the way I'm approaching this is that I'm going to approach it as if I was in this game myself, trying not to die. I know that I don't have really good fast twitch reflexes. I know I'm not particularly good at parrying. I generally know where things are. I should say I've finished all of these games. I have finished Demon's Souls. I played them all in publication order. I've finished Demon's Souls probably about 8 or 9 times, although that was all some years ago. I've had a lot of practice on it recently because offline I have been trying to do this no deaths run for the past 2 or 3 months on and off. I don't get a lot of time to play every week, and I've come pretty close. Now, in terms of Dark Souls, I have completed that at least 10 times. Again, that was at least a couple of years ago, and I haven't played it in the last couple of years. Dark Souls 2, I completed it when it first came out, and then I've completed it again when Scholar of the First Sin came out. And so I've played the DLC of that. Dark Souls 3 I have completed, but I haven't played the DLC, and that's the same for Bloodborne. So I've completed that, but I haven't played the DLC of it. Now, I am expecting, as the series goes on, it's going to be harder and harder for me to complete it with no deaths. The reason for that being, Demon's Souls, as I say, I've had a lot of practice on. I think the game is one of the easiest to do a no deaths run on in the series, for a couple of reasons. One is it's a fairly short game. Secondly, it is one of the games where shields are extremely good, magic is extremely good. There are some, and the developers really respected that you could get through the game if you knew how to get through the game. Dark Souls took a similar approach. Secondly, I have also had quite a bit of practice 2 or 3 years ago, admittedly, in trying to do a no deaths run in that. But I'm less confident on that game. It is much longer. There are more challenging bosses where I think I will struggle to do a no deaths run. But from now, Dark Souls 2 I think is okay, but Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 I think I'm going to really struggle on a no deaths run. But anyway, I think this whole process will probably take years. I don't get a lot of time to play. I think it would probably be disingenuous to say I'm bad at these games, but I'm certainly no low boss. I'm certainly no speedrunner. Certainly in PvP, my record is less than 50%. So, I'm just going to play through this. I'm going to play a fairly completionist game. I'm not looking to 100% them, but I am looking to play through the games pretty much as you would if you were fairly new to them in terms of the completion rate, but I'm going to be using everything I know about the games to try and complete them without dying. So I'm going to really try and do a fully optimized route. So, on with Demon's Souls. I just want to show you the characters I have on this, some recent attempts. So Martin is actually the first character I ever completed Demon's Souls with, that I keep around for sentimental reasons. You see I got to level 68, and I logged in with him recently and couldn't believe that he was fat rolling in that knight's armor. So I completed that game in 51 hours while fat rolling, not really knowing what the hell I was doing. Quite amazing. And that just goes to show, the game is cryptic. It doesn't tell you much about the mechanics, and actually it seems pretty clear that Miyazaki actually did want people to share information online about the game, which is, it's pretty cool. I mean, he, as well as wanting people to share cryptic information online and help each other in the game, share information in the game through the sort of cryptic messages and help each other in the game, it does sound like from interviews he was expecting people to share information on the internet. Anyway, you can see from characters 2 and 3, anybody familiar with A Song of Ice and Fire / Game of Thrones, I've been naming my No Deaths Run characters after characters from that book series and TV series. These are the two that got the closest. Thoros of Myr was a royalty. No, he wasn't actually. No, he was a wizard. The one wizard I've tried, which was surprisingly good. Everybody will tell you that royalties are much better than wizards, but I actually found starting off with the fire spell was surprisingly good, and starting with the short sword and the fire spell was surprisingly good. And not having the fragrant ring, if you know what you're doing, is far less of a disadvantage than you might imagine. And I can show you why another time. If anyone's got any questions about that, just ask me if I forget. And Stannis there, Thoros of Myr died unfortunately to the Maneaters and a cat. I was doing pretty well to the Maneaters. I had the first Maneater down to about 10%, at which point one of my cats jumped up on my lap and decided that she really needed quite a lot of fussing and attention. I managed to finish off the first Maneater. Unfortunately, the combination of being distracted by the cat and the Maneater's horrid knockback attacks with very low telegraphing took me off the platform, and I died. And obviously, by the way, these videos are going to be full of spoilers, and I wouldn't be watching them if I were you, if you don't want to be spoiled for this game. The third character on the list, Stannis, was my most recent attempt, who died, and unfortunately died, and I'm very sad about this one. Like many of my deaths in these No Deaths runs, he died because I got complacent. I was farming Faintstone to try and get myself, at least a +4 Blessed Mirrodin Hammer, which is a fantastic weapon if you can get one of those. And I was quite near the end of the game, and I was farming that Faintstone, and I was in the swamp, and yeah, I just got really, really cocky and wasn't paying enough attention, and wasn't able to roll, and got smacked down by one of the giant depraved ones there. So that was really stupid, but that accounts for most of my deaths here. So there's one slot open at the end, and I'm going to create a new character. So let's talk about character classes. Oh, actually, let's talk about who we're going to do. We're going to have... Can you guess who it is yet? Eddard Stark. Now, royalty is a very powerful class, mainly because it starts with the fragrant ring, which regenerates mana, and essentially you can walk through a lot of the game with soul arrow and regenerating mana, and about nearly half the runs I've done with royalty. But I would say that actually, aside from the fact that that the royalty starts with a decent magic level, it starts with 12 faith as well if you want miracles, although I've generally found them not nearly as important as I initially thought they might be on these runs. The royalty, I found, is a fairly weak class, so most of my runs recently have not actually been royalty. I've mainly been starting off with knights. So let me show you why. Temple knights are quite good, by the way, because they have a halberd. Although the halberd's not as good in this game as it is in Dark Souls, where it is just one of the best weapons as far as I'm concerned. But Temple Knights are a good class. Intelligence 8 is a bit annoying. Magic 6 is really annoying. So being able to cast basic spells is really, really important on a No Deaths run as far as I'm concerned. So you want to get Intelligence 10, Magic 10 straight away. So you'd have to spend 6 levels just getting this guy to be able to cast some really key spells: Stealth, Soul Arrow, the basic fire spell, whatever that one's called. So that's why I think that's a not the best starting class. I haven't used this one in a while, but it starts with a heater and a halberd, and it's not very easy to get a halberd. Pretty easy to get a heater. They cost 2,000 from the starting blacksmith, but you know, a halberd is not trivial to get otherwise. So that's an option. Barbarian's good if you want to do strength based, but again, you'd have to buy 3 points of intelligence to get to having any magic. But they're pretty good. They're probably my number 3 choice. As I say, Magician was surprisingly good. Priest, surprisingly not bad again. But Knight. Now, Knight's a bit of a trap class, I think, for a starting player. It looks awesome, right? I mean, you've got the shield, the sword, the plate armor. It's the iconic plate armor. It looks... It probably is the most visually impressive character. It's also the one in the Game Attract startup animation facing off that dragon and all those undead in the start of the game. So I guess probably a lot of people start off with this, and I think I started off with this. And the problem is, just like I found, you wear that damn plate armor through most of the game, and therefore you're fat rolling. And of course, rolling's really, really important. And one of my cats has come to say hello. Now, having said this, I think for an experienced player, this is possibly the best starting class. And here's why. That shield he starts off with, I think it's called Kite Shield, is better than a heater. And it's not trivial to get at the start of the game. There's one in World 3.1, which is not very hard to get to. But it's a bit of a pain. There's, you know, but you can't just buy it like the heater. You have to go and find it. And I personally don't think there's a huge amount in that level that is really worth getting otherwise. So I don't tend to go to 3.1 for a little while. So that shield is really good. It has higher stability than a heater, and otherwise no real downside as long as you've got the strength to use it. Now, otherwise, if you look at his stats, okay, the luck is low, and you kind of do notice that. You know, you don't get as many drops, but that's not that important. Whereas, okay, the vitality is quite low, the endurance is quite low, but if you're careful, you can cope with that. The intelligence is 11, the magic is 10, the faith is 11. This guy, as soon as he gets a wand, as soon as he gets a talisman, he can cast spells, he can cast miracles. And the most important aspect of the spells and miracles is just generally having them. It's not, unlike some of the other games, you don't need to have certain levels of faith or magic in order to cast certain spells. You just need to, until they need more than one slot, that is. You just need to have the minimum of 10 in order to be able to cast spells at all. So this is actually, I think, a really good character, and Strength 14 is really good as well, because Strength is a really important stat in this game. So I think Knights are awesome, basically. So I'm just going to fiddle around with his appearance a bit. This is Eddard Stark here. Ned Stark died. I'm cheating a bit on names. I've done about somewhere between, well, at least 25, 30 runs or so on this no deaths run here. So let's see. You tell me if I get Eddard Stark right. I'm not going to mess around with this too much. I think he's got darker eyes than that. Okay. And what else? Let's change his. And I have a cat sitting on me, which is not brilliant. There's probably some things I could do here. I like messing around with this a little bit. jaw. Here we go. Okay, give him a bit more of a distinctive jaw here. I like that. There we go. He just looks a little bit different. I get tired of staring at exactly the same faces all the time. Right, here we go. So I'm going to try and talk through this. I am not necessarily the best at talking and doing at the same time. My brain struggles with that.
King Allant the 12th.
I'm going to skip this. So please bear with me if I'm quiet while I do stuff. But hopefully I should be able to at least talk while I go through the tutorial. And I am going to go through the tutorial, and I think you should as well. The tutorial is not very interesting. I think it's a good tutorial. But there's a bonus bit at the end if you can defeat the sort of mini-boss, which initially I was hopeless at, but I've got quite good at it recently. There's some little tricks to doing that, and I don't think it's that difficult if you know what you're doing. And you get some bonus items which help you in the early game. So, let's do it. Now, of course, because this is a bonus area, I'm going to be a lot more reckless here, because if I die it doesn't really matter. So, firstly, let's take the helmet off, let's take the fluted armour off, let's get rid of that mail breaker, let's get rid of that Royal Lotus. So, he's just wearing the leg armour, the gauntlets. This is going to give him equip burden just under half of his maximum, you can see there on the right, which means fast roll. Okay, that's far more important than the extra armour we have. And you have a shield. And I'm going to assume you basically know how to fight, so I'm going to just carve through these guys. This is a good opportunity to mess around with parrying. You'll see that I'm not very good at parrying later in the game, but I do it occasionally. What I find interesting about this tutorial as well is it's quite a bright area, and you look at this bit here, it's kind of brighter and nicer and sort of shows how the graphics engine can just be quite nice really if it was ever used for that, and that actually the gloominess of the game is intentional. You know, look at these nice plants in this water here. And you'll notice I tend to use the R1 backhand after the R2 lunge with the longsword, because it tends to combo more readily than the R2 I find. I think in Dark Souls the R2 is more of a true combo. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I played Dark Souls. Okay, second area. That guy's begging for a parry. This guy is begging for a parry. I think this guy is basically, this next guy coming up, this Blue Knight, is essentially the parry tutorial guy. You're supposed to parry that guy, I think. Whereas this guy, because you can see from the message on the floor, this one he blocks a lot. Sometimes he attacks straight away. You see a lot of partial parry there. If you see, I took some damage from that one. I parried a little bit late, so I took some damage, but he got parried and I was able to riposte. So there's at least 3 possible parry results that are not simply you're missing. You can get a perfect parry, which the first two I did were, where you take no damage, and they're put in a stun state where you can riposte. You can get a partial parry where you take some damage, but they're also stunned. But I've also very rarely had a state where I take damage and I'm also staggered. I'm staggered as if I've been hit, and but they're also put in that stunned state where they can be riposted, and I've recovered in just about enough in time to hit them with the riposte. Usually that second Blue Knight, a lot of the time he doesn't actually really attack you very often at all. So what you're supposed to do is two-hand your sword or whatever and keep smacking his shield until his endurance goes down and he staggers backwards and you hit him, and you do that 2 or 3 times. I probably should have demoed that really rather than parry. You can see I'm just holding my shield up a lot, making sure I've got a bit of endurance and waiting for people to hit me. Because generally if you have a decent shield like the heater or better, one that has 100% physical protection, which you can see by going into it, looking at its stats, and you can see under damage reduction percentage about halfway down, that first number, 100, is showing that it blocks 100% of physical damage when it's used to block. Okay, this guy's going to come in from the left. This is the last normal enemy in this level. I never parry as much as this in the rest of the game. It's just, these guys really telegraph their attacks. And it doesn't matter. They do such little damage. Okay. So, this is the Vanguard. It's quite a weak Vanguard, but it is the mini-boss essentially here. So, I'm going to make sure I'm at full health because he does an awful lot of damage. I am going to... Right, I've put everything away except that. I'm going to flick to make sure I'm on Half Moon Grass. Here's my strats for this. You want to be as close to this guy as possible unless he's doing his butt slam move where he jumps up in the air and lands, because that does a small area of effect attack around him. When he does that, you want to back off enough that you're not caught in it. Other than that, you want to stick to this guy like glue all the time. But you want to be generally to his right, as in your left, or behind him. Okay, because most of his attacks attack to the front or to his left, which is your right. Okay, so when you first go in there, you are going to sprint ahead and to the left a little. Okay, and then stick to him like glue. Now, if you are a royalty or a magician, you are instead going to want to stay at maximum range and blast him with magic. In which case, your entire bar of mana should be enough to kill him. That's a slightly different strategy, where you're going to have to sprint in occasionally to get around behind him, to get him to move around, because what he'll do is he'll advance towards you, and if he hits you twice, you're dead, and he has a very long range. Okay, but anyway, this is the melee strategy. Oh, and I'm going to two-hand because blocking him with the shield is futile. I could even... I wonder, let's have a look. Can I, say, put my helmet on and, say, drop the shield? Does that work? Nope. That would be fat rolling territory. So let's put the shield back and two-hand. Okay, let's go. Here we go, you see? Just hit him a couple of times. See, just sticking to him. Just keep dancing around to your left. Almost none of his attacks can reach you if you just keep dancing. Now, he's doing his lift up in the air attack. I back off, I come back in, I hit him a couple of times. He's going up, so I back off. hits you, get behind him and heal, or back away if you can get really far away from him, basically the entire length of the room, and heal up to full. But do not think you're safe. Ah, look, he trod on me, right? That was not an attack, that was just his standard movement. So I'm going to go behind him. And there, normally where I'd be hitting, I ate the grass instead. Right, he hit me again. Right, this is a bad position. So I'm going to control that. And heal. In a bad position again, so we'll be careful. Right, there we go. He's not going to kill you just by walking on you. So don't panic if he just stomps on you like he just did. Stick to him like glue. And you did. That was worth it. I think I used, what, 4 half-moon grasses? That was totally worth it. So I get a Great Demon Soul, which is worth 1,500 souls. You can make the dozer axe out of it, but that's not, I think, a particularly good weapon. I mean, certainly I don't like great axes, so I just turn it into 1,500 souls early in the game, when 1,500 souls is well worth having. If you don't have a heater shield, you can use that by heater shield. And look, we're in the bonus secret area, if you like. For anybody who's played through the game but not seen this area before, this will be a familiar sight, for it is the Dragon God. Wonderful moves. Down the stairs. Make sure you carefully collect everything. Look around and collect everything here. Don't just run on ahead. So let's take a 4 full-moon grass. So that's a straight upgrade from my 4 half-moon grass I used in that fight. And here we go. 3 shards of hardstone. 3 of shard. I mean, that's just great. Renowned Soldier's Soul. And 2. So 3 Renowned Soldier's Soul. I think they're worth 800 souls each. So, pretty cool. And now, this happens. Okay, so that's the tutorial. Okay, so now let's move on to 1-1.